Is it going?
Good evening and welcome to the Poetry of Justice show with JackieRay Welcomes on Yikes Radio and now also on AccelerateRadio.net. Hey guys, how you doing? So here on the Poetry of Justice show, this is where social consciousness meets the arts. And what we do is we select topics that spark the interest and awareness of social diversity, leaving our listeners thinking and saying in unison, YikesRadio.com. Okay guys, you know that sound. That is the sultry sounds of the owner of Accelerated Radio and Yikes Radio. Those are the sounds of the Mr. Kevin Nash. And I love the honor of saying Mr. Kevin Nash is my mentor. So awesomeness. Thank you so much. Anyway, so here tonight guys on the Poetry of Justice show, what we are going to be doing is the best of the Poetry of Justice show. And I know there's so many topics and you're like, the best, there's so much that they do on this show. What could possibly be deduced to the best? But what I want to do is just take the time to acknowledge who we have in the studio tonight. We're blessed because I'm going to tell you originally, guys. We had Mr. Najee Ali. I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. Mr. Najee Ali was scheduled to be our guest on the show. Subsequently, after the follow-ups, we just didn't quite get the response that we were hoping for. So anyway, what we've done is we've gone on ahead today, and you know the show must go on. So we are doing the best of the Poetry of Justice show. I want to let everyone know what a blessing the show is to me and all of us, is because I just this early this morning, once we got the news and everything, beautiful Shelly C, once we found out all of the details that the guy wasn't going to be able to come, we went on ahead and I sent out a text blast, hey Chris, and I sent out a blast to a host of friends asking them if they could just come in tonight. It's like, hey guys, it's the best of the Poetry of Justice show. Who can come in? Who can be a part of this? And by God, look at guys, I have a full studio. I've got the lovely Miko Aaliyah Phillips in the house. I've got the awesome, yes, thank you Dante. Let me slow down, I'm going way too fast. I have the awesome Mr. Jason Clark in the house. Jason, hey to our YouTube listeners, as well as our Facebook listeners to this camera over here with me, Jason. And of course, I have the lovely, adorable Miss Frida Ross in the house. Hey. And I also have my adoring sweet new heart. Okay, she's my newest sweetheart, I should say. And her name is Miss Aaliyah Bush. And I just want to give a warm welcome to Aaliyah.
Hello.
And Aaliyah, don't forget to give some engagement to our YouTube listeners as well.
Oh.
And then, you cannot even continue the show without going ahead and giving a shout out to one of my top dogs in the house. And this one here, she's always a real one. Whenever we meet Miss Shelly C, she's in the spotlight for us. And so, hello, Miss Shelly C of the chat, guys. And we got her. Miko's going to work with me a little bit on our camera, guys, because we're trying some new stuff tonight. You all may be aware that we are now in Studio A here at Yikes and Accelerated Radio. I've been on the radio for a while. We were over on the Yikes side of the studio, which is Studio B. So now, praise be to God, we have accelerated to AccelerateRadio.net. So I'm in the larger studio. Last week we saw a little bit of a different setup. And so what we're doing is trying things out. So the awesome part about that, Christopher L. Smith and Hakeem Edwards, you guys can let us know if you like it, if you like the platform, if you like what we're doing. I'm also going to go ahead and put out there our telephone number, because we're going to be doing, again, like a just down memory lane thing. And so each of our amazing panelists tonight will talk about some of their most interesting shows here on the Poetry of Justice. And then we also have something new that's been rolling out. It's called, hey, POJ. And what that is, we have listeners that are now reaching out to us, Shelly C, here on the POJ show as well, to talk about some of their problems and concerns regarding justice or, you know, social consciousness, whatever that is. Because, you know, what we do is, we select those topics that's going to spark the interest and awareness of social diversity. So that's going to be an exciting thing, guys. I got a hot one, a really, really hot one for us later in the show. So I want us to just kind of segue on into that. So, that being stated, I want to know from Miss Frida Ross if you can share, and you, okay, put it this way. When you think of the best of the POJ show, or the Poetry of Justice show, you've been rolling with us really, really tough. So when you have to think of that, what would be one of your most favorable shows here?
All of them are pretty awesome. Yeah, I love them all. I think that for me, I really, really, really thought that the show about codependency. I thought that was pretty heavy. It was.
Okay.
It was.
Actually, I'm going to excuse myself. Frida, you handle this show for me for a moment because I'm going to just grab our notepad.
Okay.
Yeah, let us know a little bit more. You know, Jason already knows the notepad. So, Frida, if you can just kind of maybe highlight everybody a little bit again about the codependency show and what that did to you. And I'm just going to excuse myself momentarily and grab our notes, guys.
Sure.
Thank you.
Being that I work in the field of mental health, chemical dependency, substance abuse, and work with the homeless, codependency is one of those issues that, you know, rear its ugly head a lot, quite often, you know. So we had Mr. Daryl Lawson on, I think twice,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we were discussing that
Shout out
topic.
to Daryl. Shout out to Daryl.
Yeah, hey. And it was quite informative, and we got a lot of feedback, if I'm not mistaken. It was people that was, they were really grateful to get the information that was being provided. You know, a lot of times you don't know that you're in those type relationships, and once you get caught up in the web of a codependent relationship, it's like very, very, very hard to get yourself out of that.
Yeah. I remember we were talking about it, and when we were doing that particular show, when we were talking about, never forget, it was called Savior versus the Saint, right? Almost like a Captain Savior, you know what, if you will. But the question that we posed to the table, if you recall, Frida, was what happens when that codependent relationship breaks and splits up. So what we were talking about, Shelly, for instance, and I'm going to go ahead and get you guys back over to the ladies and gentlemen. What we were talking about in particular was, Shelly, see, if you could come up to the panel, Shelly, that'd be great. Because you're so far away and we could just chime on in. Yes, so what we were talking about on that particular show, Shelly, was for instance, when an individual is in a situation where, I'm going to just give a situation, give a vignette on that one. You have a buddy and you have a friend and you're going through things and issues, and you spend that entire time more or less socially with that person, kind of wallowing in your self-pity. Meaning, let's say for instance there's a situation where a person has some addictive behaviors, right? And this particular person allows them to be able to hang out in that addictive behavior, and you're partying together, you're drinking together, you're doing everything together, and rationalizing one another's madness, if you will. But of course, when you're in the midst of this, you do not know it's madness. So now one of those individuals is in treatment. So they're in active treatment, and you know the things we used to do, we really can't do what we used to do anymore. So Shelly, what we were talking about is when that person splits, and I'm now in recovery, right? So the stuff I used to do with JoJo, I can't do anymore. So I have to break that off. So when I broke it off, or when you break it off, what's the best way to do that? And what happens to the person who I was codependent with, right? Where does he fit in? Where does he go, and what does he do? And how does that relationship even continue to exist? Now, hearing that backstory, what is your opinion on codependency in general?
I think it's very hard to break away from it. I think when you have an addictive personality, it's very hard to break away from it. And I also think it depends on who you're dealing with. I mean, if it's a family member, you can't really break away from a family member. But you have to be able to depend on that family member to say, you know what, hey, I don't do that anymore. That's not what I used to do. And if you're not able to respect that or help me with that, there's going to be some distance, and I don't want you to take it personally, but that's what's going to happen. I don't know how to handle that type of situation, but just right off the bat and listening to what you're saying, that would be, I guess, the best way to handle it, because really, it's really hard to break away from people when you're trying to get away from that addictive personality or behavior, and you have the people that you used to hang out with and they're still doing those same things. It's hard to be in that atmosphere.
I know, right?
it's, you know,
What
it's
are you
hard.
thinking, Frida? I see it on your face.
No, no, no. I'm glad that you articulated that like you did, because but what it is that oftentimes you have the savior,
Mhm.
and then you have the sick person.
Yes, sick or
And
savior.
the savior is the one that is codependent.
Yes.
Because they are used to saving you.
Yes.
And they are
Oh,
the
I'm
ones
learning
that
something.
once that sick person, you know, finds him or herself in a situation of recovery
Healing, right.
and healing,
Mhm.
then that savior doesn't know what to do with themselves anymore. You know what I'm saying? Because that sick person no longer has that
That's sick,
need.
right.
Don't have that need for that savior or in that capacity anymore.
But the captain does.
right? But the savior
The captain
still
does.
finds
Okay.
it difficult.
I got a question for Free. So I met you working homeless outreach program
Mm-hmm.
and codependency and stuff. And one thing we talk about is transference. When your
Yes.
clients become too dependent on you, and how does that fit into the codependent relationship?
Absolutely.
And is it just transfers? Is it codependency? Is there a savior complex in there?
I think that when it's like in our situation, when we're working with the client, when we have clients, you know what I'm saying? And the case manager, the clinical case manager, the substance abuse treatment professional, they have to be very mindful,
Boundaries.
and there have to be clear cut and concise boundaries set so that that individual that's seeking the help from you understands exactly what this relationship is going to entail. You can't enter into a codependent relationship with a client. If you do, that relationship is doomed. There is no longer therapeutic. It's not therapeutic anymore. But what happens is oftentimes when that worker, when that, you know, public health worker has some issues in that area that is unresolved, you know what I'm saying? Because in our field, most of us come from
That background,
yeah.
yes.
So when they are codependent types of individuals, then they want to be the savior.
Yes.
And so that's when that can happen. And when it does, I think that entire that working relationship is doomed. You can't be
Right.
who you need to be for the individual.
But we start that relationship with that individual with those clear-cut, concise boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as functioning adults, why don't we enter into relationships and decide and set boundaries to kind of help our relationship be more stable?
Because when okay, so let's just say that it's a husband and a wife, or two partners, you know what I'm saying, that's been together for years, and that disease of addiction rears its ugly head. You know what I'm saying? They've already there's already a relationship that's been established. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that the sick person is doing what they do. You know, using, finding means and ways to use, staying out all night long, stealing, doing whatever it is that they do, and that other partner just falls right on in, you know, saving them and keeping the doors open, you know what I'm saying? When they steal a TV and go sell it, they just go buy another TV, you know, just things of that nature. And so there wasn't a time really, I think, to set those boundaries. But what happens when the sick person gets into recovery or finds themselves in a process of healing, it is at that time that the sick person has to set boundaries, because the savior,
The other side of the party
is now the one that is sick.
That's what we found in the show. We found that it's really the savior show.
It's really the savior.
Because they don't know what to do with that energy now.
And people that are like that, they kind of come to you that way. People that have a need to fix and to, you know what I'm saying? Like that's where they find their self-worth. So
Making
when the
things
sick
better.
person gets well,
I don't need them anymore.
That
That
person-
capacity. Wow.
And it's funny they're going in, I guess, to say with the best of intentions. Like they really thinking they're helping, and then, or do they go in thinking, here's a situation I can control,
Ah, there you
Okay.
go.
Okay.
I come in like this and
Look at
now I'm
Shelby.
in control of the situation.
That's the reason why the Savior is sicker than the one
No,
that's supposed
that
to
part
be
right
sick. That's the reason why codependency is seen as a mental or some type of defect, because that person really actually is, you know, without, it's about them having control over that person. And once that control is lost, what they don't realize is that you never really had no control, right?
Yeah, you were
But-
just manipulating. You didn't actually have
Absolutely.
control, right?
There you go. They're
Wow.
very manipulative. We talked about that too
The
in that.
captain.
We did.
The
Savior.
Yeah, I call him the captain. Savior.
Captain Saber, you know what?
Captain- Yeah, that's why I keep saying the captain.
It's a really nuanced relationship, that whole codependent see thing. It's several different caveats, and it's and like I said, the Savior is oftentimes the one that's really
Needs the help.
sick.
Right.
I do remember, Frida, we talked about, you know, and things are starting to come back to us, that as a part of that show, we talked about how to break off that relationship. There's ways and there's styles. I remember specifically we brought up with Mr. Lawson, I'm sorry guys, we brought up with Mr. Lawson whether or not it is okay to just break off, meaning don't tell the other person. So we're talking the sick person now has to be healed, right? So the sick person's in recovery doing whatever they need to do. Does the sick owe the Savior an explanation for the breakup?
Good question.
Thank you, Dante.
I think that it just depends on the relationship, and if it is a relationship where it's a couple, if it's and oftentimes you find these relationships with mother, father, and child. How do you break that off? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But what it takes is the person that was perceived to be the sick person that is in recovery and seeking the treatment and the help that they need. That person is going to have to find a way to articulate to those family members that I am no longer in need of those types of services from you anymore, if you will. You know, I got this.
Okay.
You know, it's up to that individual to heal themselves, and then unfortunately, it's up to the enabler, the codependent individual, to heal themselves as well. And you know, and it takes therapy for some, because that can get really deep. Those of them still waters, when you are when you have that codependent type of you know, when you are that person, you know, and you can seek out people like because they're manipulative.
Right.
They seek out people that need need
You having a
them.
flashback, Shelly?
It's a light bulb going off.
Yeah,
Yes.
like they can see them.
In my family, it's a light bulb.
Yeah, they can see
That's
you.
going off right now.
Yeah.
My grandmother was the codependent, and my aunt was the person who was lost in addiction. And now that I see it, my grandmother is now that my aunt is gone, has passed, my grandmother feels like there's nothing for her, nothing works, because she's used to controlling the situation and being that save a person for my aunt. She rescued my aunt from everything. But now that my aunt is gone, my grandmother feels like, what do I do now?
Right.
I have nothing to do now,
Right.
because she's not here for me to save her or to feed her codependency. So it's interesting to see my grandmother kind of wither a little bit away now that she doesn't have the control and that she's not saving my aunt all the time.
Got it. Aaliyah, I see you've been pretty quiet on the panel tonight. Wondering if you have any commentary whatsoever regarding codependency.
I never thought about it the way that it's being talked about. I think if I had to choose a role, I'm definitely Captain Sava, whatever.
Okay.
And just hearing the
So in
dialogue.
case you with me and I fall, you got me.
Yeah, of course. But sometimes that comes back to bite you for sure, because everybody don't want to be saved. Everybody don't want to be saved. We've already talked about people who seek out for somebody to save them, but if you don't want to be saved and you are a saver by heart or by choice or whatever, you put yourself through a lot of stuff trying to save somebody that don't want to be saved.
I want to just put out there, I had when we were doing a show on sex trafficking, Shelly, you remember when we were doing that? and I was on fire about it. You know, when I first get it, you know, Jason, how you saw me do with immigration. When I get a new topic, I'm on fire. And I was on fire about it, and I mentioned it to one of my business partners, and I told him, man, we're going to do this show on sex trafficking. He was like, Jackie, a lot of those people don't even want to be saved. Why are you even? But I'm like, I'm gonna still do what I do. But it was interesting. Actually, I got angry when he told me, no, what you mean people don't want to be saved? Hey, you know, so Aaliyah is very, very, that's a very profound statement, because it is interesting that not everybody wants to be saved. Because if you're not in that cycle of sickness and toxicity that some people may assume it to be, what do you do? What do you do if you don't have the toxic scenarios, you know? Miko, Aaliyah, what is your opinion on codependency?
I feel that for the person who is considered the savior, I think a lot of it is them not being able to get used to having that feeling of saving someone, which is also very like, it's a very, like, you feel superior walking away out of a situation like, wow, I just saved this person, or I got this person out of the situation. And I think when a person doesn't want to be saved, it's like, what? Like, that's weird. Like, why wouldn't you want me to save you? Sort of situation. So it's kind of like a disruption of a learned pattern, and a pattern that you like the feeling coming out of it. But in a sense, I think it's also kind of selfish to feel that you have the right to save people sometimes. Because like Aaliyah said, like, some people don't want that feeling. If somebody tells you, like, leave me alone, and you just keep showing up, keep doing the same thing over and over, it's like, that's selfish. And in a sense, like, that's sick of you to keep repeating the same thing over and over. Like, it's insanity to do the same thing over and over to get the exact same result. So that's basically what I think about it.
Well, I appreciate that.
And you know, another caveat to that is that the savior, a lot of times, and this is when, you know, when it's really, really, really goes into the mental health issue with that whole codependency piece. It's you know, the savior does all these things, like Aaliyah was just saying. I don't want your help. You know what I mean? I just, when I want to come home and take a shower, I'll take a shower and go to sleep, and then when I want to leave me alone. You know, but that person, the savior, would do things and do things and do things, bail them out, and then it's, I did this.
I told you so.
If it wasn't for me,
you would be
you know what I'm saying? That's that vicious
That dangerous
cycle
one,
in
yes.
codependency that happens, you know. But that savior finds their worth in saving or being the person that's there for the individual that is, you know, lost and out there, you know. And many people are that way. Many people are that way to certain, you know, different degrees, you know what I mean?
I do.
But it can really get bad, and it really gets bad for that person, the sick person that's trying to get well. You can't, you really can't. Something's gotta give. Something's gotta give. Something's gonna give if that savior is not working on their issues, because they have some issues. That's the reason why they're that way.
I appreciate that, Ms. Frida Ross. Jason Clark.
I was just pointing out you have a lot of responses.
We've got some responses, guys. Let's see what's going on. Hi, guys. Hi, Kiba. What's going on? Guys, we got Daryl Kemp in the house. Hey, Daryl, what's going on? Did you go? I know you probably was out at the K-Dub. Hey, we're going to give a shout out, guys. R.I.P. to K-Dub, everybody. Today was his going away services, so what's up?
Wow.
And Mario Galvin. Anyway, I got Roderick Hoyd. You know, Roderick Hoyd is like my big brother. What's going on? Yeah, holding on to old stuff back in, you know, can backfire in one's face. So if you're kind of holding on to that old thing, that's from Mr. Roger Hoyd. And of course, hey, Kiba, we got fam in the house, so we're going to do this. But I'm going to hand this to Dante for a minute. But Jason, I have a question for you. We're going to segue away from the codependency for a little bit. Shelly C., I'm going to interject now for you, because on January 19th, you brought Centoya Brown to the Poetry of Justice through the chat. I want you to prepare for an update for us. If you can prepare. I know it's some hot off the press, because I saw her with this really hot looking dude on some pictures. I was like, that's why she needed to get out. Anyway, Miko's up here dying. It's the Poetry of Justice show. Anyway, Shelly's going to give us an update on that. But Mr. Jason Clark, this was a huge new topic to the Poetry of Justice show that we brought maybe about, it was the end of July. July 27th was our show.
Yeah.
And you brought to
Wow.
us, well, let me just let out for our listeners know, Jason Clark, everybody's very important to me. And I'm going to let everybody know why he's so very important to me and the Poetry of Justice show. All of my guests, all of my listeners are very important. But this was, for me, an advancement for the show. Because Jason Clark, well, we had been doing things on redemption here in the Poetry of Justice show, starting with Miss April Atkins, right?
I love
Yeah, I
Miss- I
know.
love Miss April.
April Atkins, also known as Blue Ink, my sister. I love you, April. Anywho, so had been following April. April did 28 years of incarceration, and post her release, April's been doing the shows with us and kind of keeping us going on what's happening. So then one day, Frida and I, I'll give you a little bit of backstory. Sometimes I can have like multiple panic attacks worrying about the show and guests and getting everybody here. And I've been quite blessed, of course, as you know, to have Miss Frida Ross assist me in so many ways in terms of encouragement, my health, strength, all that jazz. Shout out to Free Ross. So Frida calls me up one day, and I was a Sunday, and me and her probably that morning already had spoken in fellowship, and I'm, of course, crying the blues to her, right? And she calls me up, and she was like, Jackie, I got something for you. And I'm like, what? She goes, we got Jason Clark. And I'm like, okay, I'm still dumb. What are you talking about? She goes, turn on television right now. Go to CNN. Van Jones, okay? A lot of people may know Van Jones, may not. I do know Van Jones of CNN. And I'm like, Van Jones, CNN, JackieRay, Jason Clark, Frida Ross. What could this all mean? Like, oh my God. So I'm like, whoa, guys, we have a guest of the Poetry of Justice show with JackieRay Phillips, who has blessed the screen of Mr. Van Jones. So that meant a great deal to me, still means a great deal to me. Jason Clark means a great deal to me. Thank you for agreeing to come to my show, because my point is, guys, this is the caliber of what we're dealing with, and he chose us. So bless you, Jason Clark.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for coming back to the show. We've done a lot here lately, huh?
Absolutely.
We're
yeah.
straight family now, low key.
We could tales from the hood.
I know.
All that stuff. Brought Billy on. Yeah, it's been great.
So, speaking of that, you've done some amazing work, amazing redemption work. But basically what Jason did for us, you brought the subject of immigration to the Poetry of Justice show. And honestly, I was a little nervous. Miko can tell you, my baby girl, I was really nervous. Oh my God, immigration, can I handle it? Are we ready for that? Can we take it on? And we did a great job. So I want to give a shout out again to Jason Clark. And Jason, could you please let our listeners know why that show is so important to you?
Okay. So I'm involved with ARC, Anti-Recidivism Coalition, and Billy's also a member. That's where I met him at. I was introducing Billy to another Asian guy that does a lot of work with Pan Asian stuff, and just kind of connected him for support and stuff, and we're sitting there, and they start talking, and this guy Chris tells Billy some of his story and what it was like for him to immigrate, Asian in America, growing up in different cities and stuff, and then Billy starts telling his story, and I'm blown away by it. It really, that was one that hit me really hard. And so, understanding all they went through, and then you mentioned immigration, I was like, this is the one of the stories that has to be out there, because it's so deep. It's insane.
Yes.
That's the only way I could describe it. We have, those that heard the show, those may not. So, Billy's from Cambodia. He's actually Chinese descent, but was born in Cambodia. His father was a scholar, and the Khmer Rouge ended up executing his father and put Billy in a prison camp at the age of 3 till he was 5. And our government is trying to send Billy back to that country.
And he served.
He served in the military here, right? And it just blew me away that this is going on. This is, like I said on the show, this is the last person that we should be trying to send to
back
Cambodia, right? Yeah, back where you came from. We talked about
that, right?
Right, yeah. But Billy's a great guy, and I just really wanted to get his story out there. And when you said, I told you, I said, I think I got somebody, and I was so glad Billy was able to make it and tell a story, and and put it out there for people to understand what's going on. We don't understand, like, we just hear these people came from South America.
Right.
We don't hear that their family members were killed and they were fleeing for, we just hear the caravans and the hype, and and there's so much more to every individual story, and that's what we have to be aware of. We have to be more compassionate, more understanding, take the time to listen to people and then make a decision.
Yes.
Not just make a decision based on a piece of paper.
Right.
Right? Just a report that doesn't include any of this stuff. So that's, and it was really important for me to get Billy out here because he's a great guy, and I just really wanted him to be able to tell his story and get it out there, and people have a better understanding of what's really going on.
Yes.
Not what they're telling us on the news. Let's do this in person.
Yes.
And really understand what's going on.
Miko, we talked about immigration. What is your viewpoint in terms of, let's just talk specifically about the most recent raid in Mississippi. I think there were 650 people. Shelly C's eyes are about to pop right now. Were you not aware of that, Shelly?
I was not.
Maybe about two. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, you talk about where they hit the work areas and rounded everybody up.
Yes.
And
Everybody except for the owners.
Well,
who were employed, the
The
people.
undocumented.
right, so we have that part, and we had, district attorneys justifying their actions. We had, not to prosecute these people, to do that, and we have so you have limited resources. So if you, cut the head off the dragon, right,
Yes.
then you don't have all the other little problems. So if you go to the person that's breaking the law by hiring,
Yes.
they're less likely to hire people that aren't, but then I was watching interviews afterwards where these people were going, now I'll finally have a chance to get a job, this and that, and, I've been unemployed for 11 years, and okay, because the reason you've been unemployed for 11 years isn't because these other people have this job. There's something else going on there that you've been unemployed 11, and it's just, again, it's the coverage we're seeing, and whenever I see something, I always try and see the other side of the story.
Right.
So I watch both CNN and Fox News.
Ah.
You see what I'm saying? And I'm like,
Try to balance.
I can't even find what's in the middle because both sides are so far
So
left
skewed.
field and right field skewed. Yeah, and it's like hard to find the balance in the middle. So I kind of have to watch as much as I can and make a decision. And I always try to think the best about humanity, but sometimes it's difficult.
Nico, what do you think about it?
Personally, I
From a
think
historical perspective as well, please.
America has a large issue. We're very, it's hard to say sometimes, like being proud to be an American at times because some of the things that this country decides to do to certain types of people. But America is very nativist, meaning that when it's time to throw a nation or pull it together, they want to do that, but they have to remember that you can't create a nation based off of saying, oh, anybody can come here, you can change your life, you can have the American dream, whatever that is, and then decide out of nowhere you're gonna just choose a certain group of people that you don't want here anymore. So immigration law, and immigration historically in America is just based off of who do we want here and then who we don't want here. Because at times, back in the day, like they didn't want Irish people here, they didn't want German people here, they didn't want Italians here. You don't want, Hispanics here. You have Asian Exclusion Act. You have all these different things. It's like, we want you here for the labor, and then there's too many of you. You gotta go back. No, we don't want you here anymore. But the thing that they don't understand is that people don't just leave their home for the fun of it. Or like, I'm just going to America, look cool over there. Like, no, people are leaving because they honestly feel that they are going to get a better opportunity here. Like, all of that is for a reason. And like, back to your point where it's like, oh, we don't have any work. These people are migrant workers. A lot of it is undocumented wages that they're getting.
Right.
It's not like they're getting paid even minimum wage at the most point. So, and also when these people do leave, when you have them go, who's doing that work?
Yeah.
Because I know I'm not getting out in the fields and doing that.
I'm not either.
I'm not doing it. So it's like, who's going to be this labor force that you want so bad? Because these poor white people in middle America, I know they're not going to do it. So Trump, you're not going to do it.
They're going to stay on unemployment for 11 years.
Yes.
rather than go do that job.
Right.
Exactly. So then you want to sit here and talk about a group of people who are very hardworking, who have to be hardworking, and you're going to say that they're lazy, that they're criminals, and you're going to create an entire facade or hype around them to scare people off. And that's what America always does. They pinpoint a group of people, and then they want everybody to come for them. It just goes in waves. For black people, we're always on the bottom. That's just the way it is in America. But everybody else, it'll have a time like, oh, for this amount of time. So give it 30 years, we'll be looking back in history books like, oh, that's the time that they got the Mexicans. We can go to the 1860s. Oh, that's when they had the Chinese people. Like it doesn't. Yeah, each time they're picking people because they're posing a threat to them, or it's not necessarily even a threat. It's what they're perceiving to be a threat because they're scared of themselves, honestly. And I personally think is that America's scared that its minority majority rates are slipping. You're starting to see people who look a lot more brown and less white, and that's scaring a lot of white Americans.
Scare the hell
I
out
have
of
a
me.
question, Rico, posed from one of our listeners. Hey, Rod. Rod would like to know, and at some point, what's the focus and reparations? You see what I'm saying? Assistance and reparations. So let's maybe switch or dive a little bit into that. Miko first on the panel. What is your opinion on reparations?
They're gonna have to give reparations on this. Slavery is so far gone that they'll honestly, I just have given up on that. They're never gonna give us reparations. But like with Japanese internment, although it's not worth, like no amount of money is worth being imprisoned, like at all. I don't believe that because you can never get time back, ever. You can never get those experiences that you felt back. None of that could be reparated. So essentially, I do feel those people will reach some sort of reparations, or maybe not. Who knows? Essentially, because at the end of the day, there are Mexican Americans who are very Americanized, who also are not looking at what is happening to people that they share, a lot of ethnic blood to and with. So there's just a lot of different issues that are integrated into this problem. But honestly, I do feel that years from now, America will look back and be like, oh, wow, we was wild right then and there, and we're going to have to right this wrong. Or not, because sometimes America's like, I don't care.
Sometimes, most times. I saw a meme, everyone, regarding the same kind of subject matter, and what it was titled, it was like a picture of Warren Buffett and Bill Gates saying that America's already great again. We have immigrant workers. You see what I'm saying? So I'm just kind of using that as, I guess, as a caveat to piggyback on what you're saying, Miko, and what you're saying, Jason, and everyone on the panel. Aaliyah, again, you're being kind of quiet down there.
I'm
Could
sorry.
You, no, it's us. We're talking too much. Jason, just get that visual for me, love.
I don't.
Yes, Aaliyah, reparations.
I'm quiet on this one. Oh, reparations?
Okay,
Oh,
no. Where you gonna go? Where you gonna go?
I thought we were still on immigration.
We absolutely can. Go ahead,
Well,
Mama.
I feel like I don't know enough about immigration to really speak on it.
Okay. But I'll put it this way. I did a poll, and if people said, what do you think about immigration? When you hear that word, doesn't have to go far. What's the first thing pops in your head?
Honestly,
Yes.
I don't want to get in trouble for not being politically correct, but Mexicans.
Okay.
That's literally the first thing that pops into my head.
And that's
that's
the reason
the point.
why.
Right.
Yeah,
It's a reason why.
Because the narrative around it.
Right.
Yeah, of course. But they not bothering me. They not taking nothing away from me. They minding their business. They do their thing. I feel like the fact that immigration is such a controversial topic is like annoying because we have other things to be worried about.
Yeah.
We have a
Like our
whole bunch of
homeless.
yeah.
Like the 60,000 homeless people
Yeah.
in Los Angeles.
How many was that again, Shelley?
60,000.
Jesus.
Like Trump with his finger on a bomb, and another country with their fingers on a bomb. You know what I mean? With his ignorant ass. Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel. Please don't come back. No. But okay, yeah, guys, that's a good thing. So Shelley, what about you? Reparations, real quick. Let's see what we got.
I'm kind of like Aaliyah. I don't know too much about it to speak on it, but I just
reparations.
yes.
You want to get paid? If you got paid, the government says, Shelley Carter, your ancestors were enslaved. We are at fault. I'm gonna break you off a settlement. In your mind right now, what number would work for you? From a legacy.
From a legacy
We're talking
standpoint,
a legacy
they don't have
slavery.
enough money.
That's what I'm trying to say. How do you
There's
quantify
not
that?
enough money.
Jason Clark.
I heard somebody had a really, might have been you, really interesting take on reparations was, so a cash settlement isn't going to do anything for anybody. They talked about make reparations in the forms of scholarships So you're not only making a reparation, but you're also allowing groups of people to
Okay, guys, we have a little bit of a break. This is one of our guests, actually. Go ahead, please,
yeah,
Jason.
you have people, so you're not only making a reparation, but you're giving a group of people an opportunity to become, to rise up, if you will, to to get educated and rise up and no longer be in that system of oppression and that systemic racial oppression where, and I thought that was one of the best ideas I heard is make it in the form of scholarships and stuff like that.
Right, you could also make it in the form of policy, right? Where you just literally, the thing about law is that it's extremely normative, meaning that it is based off of what the people want at the time, which is a great thing, and at times it can be a very bad thing. So I think to some extent laws have to be fixed, because with history we keep doing the same things over and over and over and over again, and we want a different result, but no one really wants a different result. So if you create a law where it's like fixed, where like we can't change this is just the way it is, like an amendment, then then it would be a better thing. So it's like, I know for a fact in America we don't want anybody taking our guns. So why can't we put a thing where it's like we will create certain policies that will protect certain groups from certain things?
I'm glad you said amendment, because it's something I've been thinking about. I saw this, I was watching the Rachel Maddow show, and one of the things she was talking about was the 13th Amendment, the abolition of slavery, except in the form of punishment for criminal people. And what her comment was, is anytime you have an amendment, anytime you have the word except, you start going down a real slippery slope. And so, abolition of slavery, except in the form of punishment for criminal behavior, and now what do we have? Mass incarceration. We have people working for 15 cents an hour. We have people working for free. If you don't work, you get punished. This is right. So I would like to make an amendment to the 13th Amendment and cut it off at except.
And that's why semantics are very important with law. Like, you have to really watch how you word things, because things can be easily misconstrued. So, and I know with lawyers, you say what you mean and you mean what they say. So they meant what they say. They mean what they say. Policymakers and legislators, like, they know exactly what each word means and how it will play out throughout history.
And what it will do.
It's very intentional. Law is extremely intentional.
Yes, it is. And as far as the reparations though, like I was saying, like how do you quantify that? How do you put a number on what was endured, right? By any group of people that have been oppressed and abused and stuff like that. And I don't want to go to school. I don't want no scholarship. I'm too damn old to go to school.
You don't want to go to school.
I don't. But I think that
Rod is saying something.
But your daughter would have that's how I'm putting out there, like your daughter would have the scholarship automatically to advance and go to school. That's, it wouldn't be.
Give me my 40 acres and a mule, whatever, quantify that in today's dollar.
Right. 40 acres where?
and reparations it's got to be more, like I said, than a cash settlement. It's got to be more than scholarship. It's got to be to so many programs that black people are involved in. So like this radio station, for example. This is a black radio station.
Yes.
All these black-owned businesses and black-owned, what's the word I'm looking for, just ideas and communities and grassroots organizations that are leveling up, that's what you need to put the money in. The people that are in the field doing the work that need the money to get more, more exposure, more of their, just what they're doing. All they need is money. If you get money, you can do whatever you want. But if you give money to people, I'm just going to spend it. We don't have that teaching of how to save your money. Financial literacy isn't popular in the black community, where it's just widespread knowledge of the importance of ownership, the importance of credit. It's becoming popular, but you got to teach you feel me, with scholarships, for example, with programs for people that are just doing all the work already.
And that's generational. You have to teach a generation about credit, about financial literacy.
Guys, we've got some great commentary here. I would like to say, Mr. Rod Hoyt again, it says, what about the financial assistance that all these new immigrants are going to need or have, and the effect on our messed up economy?
I think that's a major misconception. I think that that's being blown up now by President Trump's, whatever you call that he got in the White House. I think that's a major misconception. Those people for the most part, come over here and they work under the table. They are working in jobs for $5 and $6 an hour. Yeah, there's some that get assistance, but let's be quite frank, right? We are not at this point in time any minority in this United States a majority.
Okay.
It's more white people than it is any of us, and it's more of them that are on the receiving end of welfare, stamps, housing, and all of that kind of stuff. And while they're dumbasses,
JackieRadio.com,
voted for him, they didn't count on him cutting the funding to these things that they benefit more from than any of us. It's more of them than there are.
And that's the thing, it was made for them. So when
Talk about it.
literally, like, all of this happened after World War II ends, or after the Great Depression, Roosevelt is like, we're gonna make this for this specific group of people. We're not making this for black people. It's a lot that all that is a facade. There's no black welfare queen. All of that stuff, we don't get that. I don't know why people really think that we do, and we don't. All of that goes to poor, middle, white America. And this is literally my theory, and this is how I know, like, race is not essentially real, but it works so well. In a capitalist society, if you can put and pit people against each other based off of race, it's gonna work every time.
Yes.
Every
So
time.
these poor white people who don't have any means of money, who don't have financial literacy, who don't have any of these things, great education, none of that, as soon as a rich white person says, but you're white, they'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm better than you.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of poor white people tell me that they're better than me, and I'm middle class black American with 1 degree and about to get another one. Oh, you're better than me? We want to go in a capitalist idea in which we live in. You're not, though.
No, you're not.
But somehow you think because your skin is better, because we've allowed this rhetoric to go, and we've allowed some group of people to write history books, you feel empowered in a way. So because I'm black, I should feel that I'm less than you because of that, when if these are the rules of America, I'm beating you.
Right.
But you just said something that you know speaks volumes. Just because I'm black, you know, I'm less than you. That was the goal. You can go back 400, 800 years. That was the goal, to have us believe that we were inferior.
Even in other countries as well.
Sure.
I have to elaborate on that as well. Even in other countries such as India, the darker your skin, the less you are on the food chain or totem pole.
Right.
So it even happens in other countries. I just the word dark.
And it's so ironic because you know when you go back, BC or AC, I don't know, hell, you know, you know when you go back. You know, we were here. We were kings. We were queens. We were, you know what I'm saying? But you know, people are crafty, and it goes back to what I'm just saying. Their intention was to conquer and divide us, to make us feel inferior, and to a great degree, it worked. I mean, look, slavery only happened because black people sold us out. You know what I'm saying? They had to go to our people to get us on the ships. You know, so they, to a degree, they won. But it's and back like in the 60s, back like in the 50s, Jim Crow, just even further than that, we had a sense of who we were, more so than we do now. You know what I mean? There was a consensus that we are great people. You know what I mean?
Right. It's all out of who's writing the narrative, essentially. That's like the biggest thing. So when white people have the power to write history books and tell people how they should feel and be, that's when issues arise the most. Absolutely. Essentially. And I agree with you with what you're saying with that. But looking at like in a wider sense, why do you think in different countries the darker, like it doesn't even matter where you are. If you're dark, you're inferior. It's because of imperialism, colonialism.
Right.
That mark of westernization has hit the entire world, and we have to consider that they feel that they have become the standard of everything, the standard of beauty, the standard of everything. I even unpack things myself at times, like when I rewatch childhood shows and I'll see like a like a TV show, and I used to be like, why did I used to think this was okay? Like I was watching Jake and Josh, and I was like, dang, I used to think Drake was just everything and all this. I'm like, ew, why? Like
that's crazy, right?
Yeah,
that is so crazy. I do the same thing when I watch shows like Lizzie McGuire, even just such basic shows. I'm like, why did I think that girl was so beautiful, or why did I think that he was so dope? Like,
right.
And it's crazy because you can't figure out why. You don't know why logically, but you know why in the grand scheme of things, why you thought that back then. And it's scary because that's probably what our younger siblings think now.
Right. You have to like retrain your brain to like understand this. But I think for some people who are fortunate to have that mindset and ideology at an early age is like kind of like a rarity, because like for some people they have to learn it. Like for me at least, like going to college, like it's all performative. Race is just performative basically. So when you get into a space, you have to know how the people want you to act in order to perform to their standards, so you can get what you want out of the whole thing. And that's how you have to be as a person of color. It's called having double consciousness. You have to know how to be yourself in your own community with your own people, yet you also have to know how to, whenever you go in with another group of people, how to blend in, how to work the magic, how to do whatever you need to do in each different space.
Me and your mom talk about it all the time. We go from the hood to the hills, and then we come on back down again. Yes, ma'am.
It's free to Ross. I want to acknowledge Mr. Tony Allen. Hi, TA. Tony's on us, following with us on our Facebook listeners. But he says, hey, Jackie, America is using the Hispanics like they have used everyone else in history by misdirect the attention of the general public from their true intentions. So does that kind of keep feeding back to where we were going on that viewpoint? So, wow, good stuff.
That was a good show.
Justice show. And Shelly, see, well, I'm looking at the clock. We've got a little bit more time. Well, of course, we have several.
Can I tack on something real quick to what you
Jason.
said? I was up at a training in Oakland for restorative justice. I was up there this week, and part of the training was we had circles, and we sat down and we had a no holds barred discussion about race.
Okay.
Everybody was allowed to speak politically incorrect. It didn't matter. Say what needed to be said. And we had this discussion, and there was an Indian woman in the group, and she talked about growing up in India. She felt bad about herself because she was darker. And there was a lighter skinned Indian woman there who grew up in like Marina Del Rey, or and she was talking about like how she had all the like it was guaranteed, like she knew she was going to college. There was no question. Like she talked about growing up with that privilege and understanding and that stuff. And there was a Asian girl there that talked about she was actually Filipino, but she was very light, so she passed more like a Japanese. And like her friends, she would go into, and she grew up in a white neighborhood, and like her friends treat her like the safe Asian girl. They didn't know what she was really about, but and we had this discussion about how we treat race and how we look at different people because of the like because they were lighter, they were more passable and easily moving into society, and the dark one, she held her own self back kind of because she was darker and felt bad about herself and didn't think she was worthy of other things. And we had this discussion about it, and it was. And when you brought that up, I'm sitting there going, I just talked about this on Wednesday.
It's racism within the race.
And like you're saying, like the
India still has a caste system.
Yeah.
They still have a caste system there.
You said she held herself back, right? As a result of probably nothing really overtly happening to her, but because of the implicit bias that others have. We all have it.
Right.
We all have it.
We all have it.
If you just be honest, you know what I'm saying?
We do.
Absolutely. But yeah, we act like she was just saying, we act accordingly. You know how to act in certain situations with certain people. But it's unfortunate that we take on others' implicit biases that we don't even know that they have, but we just assume because of the way, in general, this world is, right?
Yes.
So I'm darker. So I'm going to be feeling some kind of way when I walk into this room because I know that other people are going to receive me like this. No. You know what I mean? But that's the way things are. And it's unfortunate. You know what I mean? It's really unfortunate.
That's absolutely. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was actually going to say, it connects to what you were saying, or what y'all were saying about, why was Lizzie McGuire and Drake and Josh, cool to me? What you think now? It's that implicit bias. If I go on the television and all I see is Drake and Josh, Lizzie McGuire show, Hannah Montana show, like the only images I see are white blonde girls, a brunette dude that plays the guitar. There's maybe a few different shows promoting the same idea. That's what I think is, you know, the best, because they're in TV, they're the celebrities. Everybody knows who they are, this, that, and the other. Where's my value if I don't see myself there? That's why Black Panther was so important, and all these movies that are coming out with representation of people of color that haven't been in media. That's why it's so valued and so important to see.
And the cool part is that this place is big enough for everybody to be great.
We all think it's
Right? Everybody can be great.
But the thing is, all of it is ours anyway. They just take it.
Yes.
Like we just continue, and this is the part, we just continue to create things for them to take.
Yeah.
Why can't we just go ahead and just make LLCs for everything? Like, there's a rapper now, her name is Meg Thee Stallion, and she had this thing called Hot Girl Summer that was just, she trademarked it. Everybody was just start using it, just start taking it and using it.
Still using it.
Still, everything that we do, they take, and they don't even know what the purpose of it is for. I work in East LA at a middle school. Majority, the 98% of the school is Hispanic. I'm seeing kids wearing do-rags. I'm like, you don't even, what are you wearing a do-rag for? You don't even, I was like, do you know why people wear do-rags? They're like, no, it just looks cool. No, I'm like, you don't have the hair texture. You could never, you can't. It's not made for you.
Like, look, Monique May says, everyone, they are using them as scapegoat the way that Hitler used the Jews.
Look,
Very similar.
Very similar.
like you
Yeah,
just said,
absolutely, Jason.
it's a group. It was a choir, right? And it was a bunch of white kids. They might have been in middle school or something like that. And it was one of the songs, Nene.
Yeah.
I see you, Nene, right? And somebody had typed on top of that video like, we can't have shit at all. Like nothing. You know.
We may as well stop creating stuff right now.
At this point,
But I bet you if we stop, nothing else will go.
Yeah.
Right.
The world will have nothing, no entertainment at all. I just saw a video for a Japanese artist, and it literally sounds like something Nicki Minaj or Cardi B would make, twerking, the whole everything. I'm just like,
Of course.
you guys are you just not creative? Like, can you not think of anything? But you when we do it, it's terrible, it's trash. Right now, I'm seeing Hispanic girls, white girls wearing like
Box
braids.
braids.
I'm like, you don't have the hair for it. We do things for a reason. We create this because it's cultural for us, and you're just gonna go and take it and have no idea.
Taking
no
it back to
background
Harriet
about
Tubman,
it.
that's the maps, right? You know what I'm saying? So people are using it as a
But
fad.
then look at what we do.
Que sera.
We have to. That's the thing.
It's assimilation,
We
right?
have to, because they
There
tell
you go,
us this is.
Jackie.
Why is there a law that I can wear braids? You can't fire me because I have braids or an afro.
Now
Just
there's a
the
law.
fact that
Now
it
there's
has
a
to be
law because that's a
in
thing.
that.
So
Yeah.
before, you're pressuring me. You're pressuring me to get a weave.
Mm-hmm.
You're pressuring me to straighten my hair.
The women that had to cover their head and stuff. There was a lawsuit. They had to file a lawsuit over that because she kept her head covered. They told her it was not part of her uniform or something like. Why are?
Yes.
It's a religious thing.
That's-
It's completely
that's
separate
their-
from everything else. Why are we having to pass a law
Absolutely.
to correct this? You know, again, it's ridiculous.
It makes no sense at all.
We have been having some amazing discussion here tonight on the Poetry of Justice show with JackieRay Welcomes on
Yes.
Yikes Radio and Accelerated. So what we're about to do, guys, Facebook, stay with me. Right, Ronald Fitzhugh, anyway, guys, we're gonna take a little bit of a break, but you guys